Hello viewers, welcome to our first ever video podcast as Business Legal. With us in the house this afternoon is a person who is not a stranger to innovation and business and legal issues. So we will welcome him and then ask him to introduce himself. And briefly, he's a partner at Otis Africa and heads the TMT and Intellectual Property Department of Otis Africa. And he has provided extensive strategic advice on commercial, transactional, intellectual property matters, including structuring and management, due diligence, investigations, and a whole host of those IP issues. So, Mr. Bernard Mukasa, you can introduce yourself and say hi to our viewers and just keep going.
Thank you.
I forgot.
I really don't see what I'm going to introduce again. You've pretty much got it. Bernard Mukasa, partner at Otis Africa, passionate about intellectual property, innovation, and that sort of thing. I think really there's nothing else to add. Happy to be here for the first one ever. I think that's a privilege. Yeah, so I'm ready to go.
So thank you, Bernard, and that's the individual we'll be dealing with this afternoon. So Bernard, just to go right into it, we really invited you here to help us conceptualize legal and commercial rights in the creatives industry. And that is something we absolutely believe that you would have a better view about than many people in practice today. Somewheres alias Crystal Panda, that his song Demo Bintwala had been stolen by another artist, Manuel Alias Monji. Those are allegations. We don't know how true they are, but they are in the offing, and a lot of those conversations, those things are happening in the market. So what is the rationale, if you can start from there, what is the rationale behind the laws that protect creatives? And then you can quickly just take us through those laws, at least from Uganda's perspective and the region.
All right. The rationale for protecting creativity and creatives is simple. It's the very existence of humankind. We exist, and we've existed all these years because of creativity, innovation, and ingenuity. So it goes without saying that we must protect that. We must encourage that to go on to make better ways of living. The first guy was cold. He invented fire. That was ingenuity, innovation. The next guy said, okay, how do I light this fire easier than rubbing two coals? That's how ingenuity and creativity goes on. So the very purpose of it is to make human life better, to make it easier. We were walking, then we got bicycles, then we got cars, then we got aeroplanes. All that is to make human life easier. So the importance of creating creativity, innovation, and ingenuity is just to make human life easy. We must invent new ways of doing things. We must come up with easier ways of doing things. We must adapt to the changing environment. Today, if you're depending on this mineral, tomorrow it's out. Today, you're depending on this machinery, tomorrow it's outdated. Get faster ways of doing things. So the rationale is just our very existence depends on our ability to innovate, create, and be ingenuitive.
Okay, so just before we dive into the laws,
yes,
from a Ugandan perspective and region, what laws we are dealing with, there's a lot of talk on innovation and the law, especially whether innovation precedes the law,
yes,
or the law precedes innovation and all that, because sometimes it looks like legislation is far behind.
Yes.
And innovation, and I think for me rightly so,
yes,
is running ahead.
Yes.
So how do you find that the nexus to make sure there is a harmony, or there is a convergence point between how fast the lawmakers are thinking and how fast the innovators are thinking, to be able to find a convergence point?
So the whole thing about innovation is to always be ahead of most of the other fields. Most of the fields, unfortunately, will have to play catch up, because at any one point there's a child in his bedroom inventing the next greatest software, the next greatest car, that sort of thing. So the question then remains: are we moving fast enough in terms of catching up with our innovations, with the changing landscape of our lives? So that's the question. And of course, because laws are territorial in nature, so it comes down to Uganda. Are we moving fast enough? We saw most of our intellectual property laws were revamped around 2006, and this was as a result of our international obligations, the different agreements that made us, hey, you guys have to modernize your laws to this level, and that's where we are. So you can imagine from 2006, when we started that purposive approach, we still have new acts in new areas of intellectual property coming up now. I mean, we haven't yet got something on traditional knowledge and expressions of folklore. Those are some areas where the plant varieties, I think, is new. Geographical indications 2013. But all that was as a result of a conscious effort. So, yes, there is need to fasten the catch-up game. I mean, you see now cryptocurrencies have come. So how long is it going to take us to come up with laws on cryptocurrency? So yes, the law follows, but the thing is, the law itself is an innovation. So whilst the guy is in the lab innovating, even us, the lawyers, we need to be innovating and creating to catch up with him so that we move parallel. The ideal thing is that we move parallel, but if we can't move parallel, at least catch up as fast as possible. Because if most of these things remain unregulated, then there are very many dangers for the lay person at the end of the day.
Okay. Let's just take it now
to the laws.
Now, what laws specifically protect if a creative walks into this room now?
Yes.
And they have a problem with, like we have pointed out in our icebreaker.
Yes.
What laws are we thinking out first?
Okay.
What are we thinking about?
So of course, creativity itself and ingenuity and innovation falls under intellectual property, and these are creations of the minds by definition. So it depends then on what you've created. So you identify your creation and then you see which legal regime protects it better or best. So there are laws on trademarks, there are laws on industrial property, industrial designs, patents, utility models, geographical indications, copyright and neighboring rights. So all those are laws, plant varieties, to protect innovation and ingenuity. But in relation to what you've asked, for creatives in the artistic industry, and I would go straight to the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act. So that's the law that now creates, that protects creatives particularly, in this case, like in the Munji, Crystal Panda scenario. So that's the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act. So this really protects expressions, creativity around expressions of literary works, artistic works, drawings, and that sort of thing. So for musicians, if an artist who's, an artist of any kind, even a drawing person comes in and they're asking me how to protect their work, I'd go straight to the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act. So copyright is really a law that protects the expression of that artistic skill. And from the onset, the distinction is that it protects the expression of the skill, not the skill. So you might have your song, but it's in your head, you just hum it in the shower. But you have to express that creativity. Express it in a tangible form, maybe written or some other tangible form. And once you express it, then you have a copyright over that material. And the beauty about copyright is, unlike the other forms of intellectual property, for it, it's the immediate you express, your protection starts. Of course, later we'll see the importance of registration and all, but with copyright, the day you express, the day I sit down and write my script here for a dangerous play, that's the day my copyright protection starts.
Okay, so essentially, copyright is perhaps what I want us to really go into.
Yes.
And you can delve as deep as you want to delve into it.
Yes.
And we make it, because this particular segment is we hope that we can at least craft a better view of copyright, but also a layman's view of copyright. So if you can just take us away in that direction. Okay. And if I have any question, I'll just chip in. Yeah.
Okay. So copyright is really to copyright, pretend to give you a right over something. So you have an artistic idea, be it a song, a play, a drawing, a sculpture, and you express that idea in a tangible form. It is your idea. And at that point at which you express that date X, when I'm seated in this lab and get a piece of paper and do that, that's where my copyright starts. Okay? And that protection lasts for the lifetime of a person. It lasts for the lifetime of a person and 50 years after their death. So copyright is very interesting in nature, and I like it so much as a form of intellectual property because it has less formalities and it's more automatic. So it's automatic from the day you express the idea, 50 for your entire lifetime, and 50 years after your death, your estate or whoever is managing your affairs can still benefit. What happens after 50 years is that now the presumption is that the work has either been improved, the work is either irrelevant, the way the innovation and creativity goes on, something can't be relevant for so many years. So then the work goes into the public domain, because at that point, even from an economic perspective, you're probably not earning as much from it. Yeah, so you've earned your whole lifetime, 50 years after your death, your children or estate has earned. At some point, it's now free for everyone to use. So that's the nature of copyright and how it's. But the formality is that you may have to register it, and it's actually advisable to register it. So when you express it in a tangible form, you go and register with the National Copyright Office. The National Copyright Office in Uganda is the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. And I think, again, copyright is the cheapest intellectual property form to register. I think the application is 50,000. Yes. If I'm not mistaken, you pay 50,000, they search. If it's a new work, you put the work there. If it's a script, you put the script. If it's a song, you put the CD. If it's a software, you put the code, and they subject it to an examination, the copyright examiners at the registry. And if it passes the examination in that it's new, it's never been done before, and it's something tangible and new and expressed, then you will pass the formal and then the substantive examination, and they'll give you your certificate. So that's the evidence now. It's like owning a land title. Let me compare it to real property where many people relate. You own the land, but you don't have a title. So, yes, everyone can know this land is for person X, but if you don't have the title, then no, you can't prove your ownership. So you own the land, yes, we know it, you own the copyright in the same way we own it, but at the end of the day, when you register and you have your certificate, that's the best title you will ever have, and it helps you to do so many actions. So why register copyright?
Yeah, okay, so...
Oh, sorry, you have a question.
What you hear a lot of commercials, so like if the scenarios we have been given,
yes,
and a lot of those things happen in Uganda. Particularly, I'm personally interested in like the writing,
yes,
people writing books and novels, and I think that's beginning to pick up here.
Yes.
But there's also now the new trend of people downloading PDFs of
yes,
those books. So what are the rights that are conferred on a person who owns their copyright, especially
yes,
if they've registered it? So,
okay. So of course, yes, and rightly so. So someone will ask, why should I register?
Yes.
You know, if I own it, why should I register? I'm performing it. So the registration confers on you the legal rights which are given by law. And of course, the legal rights in copyright, there's of course the most important is the moral right. The moral right is that you will forever be the owner of that work and recognized as the creator. So many times, sometimes copyright may be sold, but even when my script is sold, my song is sold, they will always recognize me as the person who wrote the play, who wrote the song, and that is the moral right. It doesn't go away. Then the second section of rights are the economic rights, and this is where the juice is. So the economic rights are that when you register, it determines how you use. It determines how you use and how you earn. I mean, it will prevent you from all sorts of things, dilution, copying, and anyone else using without your permission. So of course, economic rights give you then the right to determine how your work is used anywhere. You can sell it subject to your right. You can assign it to other people to use for a given period. You can license people to perform it or to use it. You can then license people to develop derivative works, and I'll explain that shortly from there. So basically, it's you who controls how your thing is used. If someone else uses it without your permission or without your authorization or changes it, then because you have the economic rights, you can have a remedy in law against that person for infringement. So that's the most important thing. And then if you register, you have your certificate, it's easier to enforce your rights. Yeah.
That would really take us to what you said you touch, because again,
yes,
any person perhaps in my age group, let's say 18 to 26, 27, has probably watched what we call Angel Getting.
Yes.
And you have so many video libraries that are, for lack of a better word, pirating movies.
Yes.
How, especially now in a budding industry like Uganda, I think Ugandans are beginning to really pick up on creativity and all.
Yeah.
But also, you are having the people in video libraries who want to also earn 1,000, 2,000 off this CD.
Yeah.
What's that connection? How do I help these people also make their 1,000?
Yes.
But I also make my money off the work I've done. Okay.
So there is another branch of copyright. There's the core right is the copyright of the creator, but then there's a second section called neighboring rights. Yeah. Now, neighboring rights are the rights which attach to the work which you have copyrighted. So you have copyrighted my script, my song, and now there are so many other rights which come in. I mean, rights of performers, rights of broadcasters, rights of producers, rights of, all these rights. So you look at it this way. I write my script, let me use a play. I write my script for play X here for Independence Day. Then I have now, because I've registered, the copyright is mine. There are so many people who I can give it to. I can give it to Alex Mukuru to direct and produce. I can give it to the Ebonies to act and perform. I can give it to UBC to air and broadcast on Independence Day. I can give it to schools to teach the history of Uganda. So all those are becoming now neighboring rights. And those neighboring rights bring some benefit to the copyright owner. So all those guys should be able to get, first of all, the mother right and approval, consent from you. And then secondly, there will probably be some monetary compensation. So you're earning. So there's no automatic right. Anyone who sells or plays someone's song, I mean, you see in the more developed jurisdictions, even radio stations, all these streaming sites, that's why they're charging us for music. Because to load a song there, they're paying someone to load their song there. Celine Dion's song is on Tidal, is on Apple Music, she's getting money for it to be loaded there. So that's why they have charged the end user, because what they're just doing is making it available. So those downtown guys in an ideal system should be paying the artist something. I mean, theirs is a noble thing. They're making the product available. But there should be a system within which the artist also earns, or the creator of those works. Or even these guys of Njogedere, they are translating. But there was a mother thing which they are translating. They're not translating from scratch. So there's no the creativity is in the translation, but it's based on a work which someone made. So someone should be earning. So in an ideal system, if these rights are enforced according to the law, all these people should be reverting to the artist for consent, some monetary compensation or otherwise, and everyone should be earning. Yes, they will earn, but also the person earns and doesn't have to hear his song, which he didn't authorize. Every time Capital FM plays your song, they pay you. Every time Hotel Africana plays your song, they pay you. That's how it works. Every time a choir performs a song of UB40, they pay. That's how the system works.
Okay. So your profile is clearly a lot of advisory work.
Yes.
Advisory work on big transactions.
Yes.
But have you had an influence?
Yeah.
I know you also sit on the URSB Users Committee,
yes,
and also the Uganda Law Society Intellectual Property Cluster.
Yeah.
But have you had an influence, especially on the local creative industry?
Yeah.
Not just in terms of the law, but also in advising, because I know they may not be big multinationals. Yes. But how have you helped the local musician, the local creative to be able to, or how would you advise them to be able to get
that
the
level
best
of
out of
protection?
their creativity?
So of course, yes, we've talked about the law, the rights. Now we're talking about the enforcement.
Yes.
So that's an interesting thing. But I'm not a bad guy. I'm not advising multinationals. I mean, we have charity has to begin at home.
Yeah.
But of course, you're right. We've done some work. But the first step is, first of all, sensitization. You don't want a law which is just in book, which the people it's targeted for don't know. So the first step is always sensitization. Tell these guys as much as possible, because they also don't know. They're making mistakes. They also don't know they're making mistakes. So the first step is sensitization on how to protect their works. The next step is sensitization on how to use. And then the next step is sensitization on how to enforce their rights against people who are misusing. Okay? So there are some mechanisms provided for within the law, and there are some, within the law there's what they call collective management societies, for example. Now these are societies which are supposed to make it easier for creatives to enforce their rights. Because of course we don't expect Bebe Cool to attack every TV station, every radio station, every hotel, every performer in Uganda. It's unrealistic, and moreover that's just in Uganda. Yes. Remember, his music is international. So what happens to, the law provides what they call collective management societies. So artists join these societies and give them a license or a rights to enforce their rights on their behalf. So these collective management societies, they get all their members at work, and they just now establish systems to find out who is using, who is misusing, and then they enforce the rights. And it's easier that way, both within Uganda and outside Uganda, because within Uganda, it will be easier if, there's Uganda Performing Rights Society. That's one, I think the oldest in Uganda. So it's easier for Uganda Performing Rights Society to go to Hotel Africana and say, we have these 60 artists, these albums which they've assigned to us, and we are collecting this amount of money set at this rate. Then they collect what they call those royalties, and then they transmit to the artist. So that's an ideal system. I think many years ago we saw when UB40 came here. I don't know if you were born. So when UB40 came here and MTN brought them, I think the collecting society of the UK came to because they had assigned, and then you see the collective societies have collaborative agreements with others in other jurisdictions. So if Bebeko's song is played in Australia, UPRS probably has a cooperation agreement with the one of Australia, with the one, and then they write to them and say enforce. So that's how the system works. So the one of the UK had a collaboration agreement with UPRS, Uganda Performing Rights Society, and they instructed them to enforce their rights on certain songs of UB40 whose copyright belonged to someone else, but they had performed here. And that case was in court. I think we followed it. I think they ended up paying. So that's an ideal system. So one, I would encourage artists to establish and belong to these societies because it's easier in groups and numbers. Then two, I would encourage artists also to be careful about sharing their works. You have to be sensitive about how you share your works. I know you're probably looking for funding, you want, hey, producer, I have this one which I've come up with, look at it and see, then you give it to the producer. Now, what are those arrangements? What is governing those arrangements? I mean, there are agreements in law, non-disclosure agreements, so that you say, okay, give me my work, but first sign the non-disclosure agreement so that you can't disclose it to anyone else. If you do, then there are repercussions in law. So sign NDAs with these people before you tell them your thing. So that when you tell them, you have that comfort that they're not going to retail. I mean, so many people have done it. I think there was a case where of this Guinness game show, football, someone pitched it to UBL. I'm not so sure, in case it's not accurate. Yes, they pitched it to UBL, and UBL opted not to do it. And then later, Guinness, a brand under UBL, is hosting an African one. Yeah. So these guys now sued UBL and said, but that was our idea. You chased us out and then re-implemented. Yeah. Because you're disclosing your information without certain legal parameters to govern that relationship. Don't just disclose. So that's another way. Use those agreements, non-disclosure agreements. And of course, the third way is register always. While the copyright is automatic, but always register it. Maybe you come up with new music, even if it's not released, go and register it and say, this is my unreleased music. I mean, we are seeing so many songs of artists who have even died being released now. But there's copyright still going to them because they have agreements with the recording studios. They say, okay, I've recorded 60 songs on the album, they put 40. So the 20 are shelved for another time. But now when you're dead, the euphoria, people, you imagine if Mose had like 20 unreleased songs, I'd buy that album immediately. But who would have the copyright? Where would the copyright go? So he must have had an arrangement in place with probably his recording studios. These are my unused songs, still I have copyright to them. So that basically when you register, you dictate the commercial arrangements. You'll probably have an assignment agreement, a licensing agreement, and you dictate how much royalties you get. It's clear, everything is clear. There's no room for error. Yeah.
Finally, how much do you think the creative industry needs lawyers? Because I think you talk about agreements, the royalties and endorsements and even the NDAs.
Yeah.
But to be honest, the typical creatives market has absolutely no idea about something. So how much do we need the input of lawyers?
Yeah.
In Uganda we like to have lawyers when we're in trouble.
Yes.
But how much do we need lawyers and what case can we make for the law?
Yeah.
That's a bias I personally have. Because I mean, with all the innovation going on, what if a person can be able to have all these things done by themselves?
Yeah.
Where does the lawyer come in? And that's what also Businesslegalug as a project we intend to help people. You talked about sensitization.
Yeah.
So where does the lawyer come in? And I think that will be...
So the lawyer is very important. And as we've said, the world is moving away from cures to prevention. Even in the medical field, people no longer want now to go and say, I have malaria, I have these symptoms. People want to say, wellness is selling better. Eat well, exercise. But what is the rationale to get a doctor to take me through that diet? Yes. And the rationale is always get it right. It's the devil is in the detail. So while these agreements are on the internet, if I Google a licensing agreement, it's there. But if you get these precedents on the internet and you're not the technical person, there's a reason why lawyers still exist or doctors still exist. Google, you'll give it all your symptoms, but there's something it's going to miss because of that human element. So the importance of the lawyer is to give you that, maybe the word is bespoke, but that tailor-made touch. So whereas I can get a licensing agreement on Google and use it, but I'm not a lawyer, I didn't go to law school. How am I going to tailor that agreement to fit my actual circumstance? Because a contract is basically a relationship governing two or more people. So we sit down and agree on our terms. We say, okay, you can use my song, but if you play after 4 times, pay me this money. If you play after 8 times, pay me this money. So that agreement which you're picking is general. It doesn't have that detail. And you don't have the expertise to tailor the general agreement to that detail. So lawyers are still very important. If you're looking at the prevention part of it, if you have a lawyer from step A, and actually it's cheaper to have a lawyer from step A. So you've gone to record with, what are the studios? Swang's Avenue. Involve a lawyer in that relationship. They've given you a document you've just signed. You know? But you have special terms which you want also for yourselves. Because these things, they will give another artist other benefits which they won't give to another artist. So how are you going to negotiate without a lawyer? So a lawyer has that, first of all, the technical knowledge of the law, and has the training of negotiating and knowing where to tailor-make certain things in the agreement. So when you go with your lawyer at Swang's Avenue on the first day, and Swang's Avenue says, okay, we'll sign you, but we want this and this and this and this, the lawyer will know from his experience, is that tenable? Is that agreeable? You're pushing us here, you know? So that at the end of the day, when that relationship is reduced into a legal document, it is tailor-made to your personal wishes with Swang's Avenue, not a general Swang's Avenue agreement, which they give to everyone. And that's what contracting should be. That's what prevents disputes. If that's done right from the beginning, you're never going to have disputes because everything is clear. So it's like, I'll refer to the medical analogy. Prevention, exercise, eat well, for your body type, what? Prevent diabetes, cancer, and everything. Have a lawyer at this side. It may seem, because many people think, negotiations, you don't need a lawyer, lawyers are expensive. But when you are defending against MTN for playing your music and you don't have these agreements, you see certain clauses from a generic agreement you picked, and now it's coming back to bite you, you're paying more at that point. Yet this is actually cheaper, the advisory is cheaper. So it's better to have a lawyer from step 1 to avoid getting to step 10 and fighting.
Thank you, Bernard.
You're welcome.
For our viewers of Business Legal, it's been Bernard Mukasa. An absolute pleasure to have you.
Yes.
And thank you. Until next time, please check out our social media pages, Business Legal on Facebook, Business Legal on Instagram.